This is the tutorial for the blur and tint preset. This preset comes as an effect and also as a generator. To add the effect, come to Effects, come down to Effects, Greg Edits Effects, and then the blur and tint effect, and you can just drag and drop it onto your clip. And then in the inspector, you can find the controls here. So by default, the blur and tint will fade on a blur and a tinted color over your footage like this, so that you can then add some text on top or some other bits of media like that. You can change the strength of the blur here, and you can also change the strength of the tint here. And then underneath here, you can click on tint color and you can change the tint to any color you like, just like that. You've also got the option to disable the tint or disable the blur and just leave a tint. And you can also change the blend mode of the tint. Something like multiply would give you a different kind of effect. So you've got all these different options here. If you come to the timing tab, you can set the start and end time for the blur and tint animating on. So by default, it will start at 0 seconds and the fade on will end at 1 second, just like this. If I was to change this to 2, then it will take 2 seconds to fade on, like that. And then if I was to set the start time to 1, then it will start at 1 second and finish at 2 seconds, like that. If you want to be more specific with the start and end times, you can move the playhead to where you want it to start and click Set Start Time, and then move the playhead to where you want it to end and click Set End Time. And now it will do it on those exact points. You can also change the easing of this, but normally cubic or none will be enough for this one. Coming back to the controls page, if you click on playhead to start, it's going to move the playhead to the start of the fade. And then if you click on playhead to end, it's going to move the playhead to the end of the fade, so that you can then set the blur strength and the tint strength, knowing that this is going to be the final result. Underneath the tint controls, you can add a mask. If you click on enable mask, you can then see this is what appears on screen. So if you come down to the fusion overlay, you can then use the on-screen controls to set which part of the tint and blur you don't want to be affected. So say if you don't want this part to be affected, then you can just set it there and then you'll get this result. So in this case, the mouse cursor has gone over to the right side of the screen, just over here. So then you might want to set it to around here, like this. Maybe move the height like that. And then you'll see, you'll get this effect. And you can also use the controls down here, which will do the same thing as the on-screen controls. And you can also adjust the corner radius like this, and the angle, and also give it a soft edge if you like as well. Something like this. And then even further than this, you can also enable a pop out. So if you enable pop out, you can then animate this section on its own. So you have position A and B, size A and B, and angle A and B. So the A's refer to the start of the animation, and then the B's refer to the end of the animation. So now the playhead's at the end of the animation, we can move position B like this, bring it down, bring size B up like this. You can also do the same with the angle, but we'll leave that like that. And now you'll see it's going to animate out like this. Or you can have it animate on top of itself over here just to bring it up like this. So easy. And you also have the option to add a drop shadow as well. So there'll be a drop shadow underneath here, which if I change the color, then you can see it even easier like that. And then what you could do is as this mouse cursor goes down, you could then have it animate out. So if you cut this clip here and come to this clip and then click on animate out, and then when it animates out down here, cut this one, delete it off this one, and you see it's going to animate out just like that. And then you can change the timing for this by dragging this end further over and then this end further over. And now you'll get this. So easy. You also have some global controls at the bottom. So if you click on enable global controls, you have the same position, size and angle, but this affects the whole entire image. So you could then move in like this and like this over here. So it moves the whole thing over there. So that can be useful in different situations as well. Say if I was to disable the pop out and then you were focusing on something maybe in the middle of the screen, like this perhaps, you could then put size B in and then move the position around, and then you can have this kind of effect. So there's lots of different options you can play around with this. And then of course you can come up to timing and click on no animation, and then you'll have no animation. It's just going to start like this. Blur and tint also comes as a generator. So if you come down to generators, Greg Edits Generators, and then you can drag and drop the blur and tint layer just like this. And it works in the exact same way like that. This can be useful if you have a busy timeline. So here, for example, I might have a text on top of the clip here. So if I move this text like that, then it's going to blur everything, including the text. And you can also do the same thing with the mask and also the pop out as well. So it will just pop out like that. Nice and easy. Another option you have as well is to invert the mask. So if I click on invert mask, you can now see that the inside of this mask is now blurred and the outside is not blurred. And also with the mask, you can choose to have a polygon. So if I just disable the pop out for now, click on polygon and then enable my fusion overlay, I can then choose the exact mask like this. And that's what's going to be masked out. And then I can revert the mask and then move it around as well like this. And again, I can pop that out in the same way like that. So there's lots of different ways you can use this. It's great for focusing the attention on one part of the screen and then popping it out so it's more readable as well. So that's the blur and tint preset. If you have any issues or any questions, just send me an email and I'll be happy to help.